Hello and welcome back to the Mind to Money podcast. I'm Sherry, a financial coach.
And I'm Val, a financial planner. And today we are talking about 10 financial myths. We are using our friend ChatGPT. We asked what the most common financial myths are, and it gave us the myths with its reasoning. So we're going to read the myths and just have a bit of a discussion around them, because there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of rule of thumbs, there's a lot of things that work for me that won't work for you, there's a lot of things that work for Sherry that won't work for me.
And there's a lot of things that you should always, you should never.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot more fluidity to finances. Yes. And I think most of the rules, it's like always do this, but except when. The first one we got is that you must have 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. Mm-hmm. So Val, your hot take.
I think that that's a really nice goal to have. It's not always realistic.
And I think that 6 months is sometimes too much and sometimes not enough, and that it's very dependent on your financial situation. If you are a 2-income household, then to have 6 months of your expenses really only becomes necessary if both of you were to lose your job. And if that possibility exists, like if you both work in a similar role at the same place, then maybe you want to have more than 6 months. But if you have very different, so like my husband and I, he works in a company and I work for myself. And as we know, you can lose that income in the snap of a fingers when you're an employee. But for me, self-employment income has more variability to it. So 6 months is great. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's not enough. And when you're looking at expenses too, I always love to create an emergency budget and have the number of months based on that emergency budget, because going through getting terminated, that allowed us to drastically pull back our budget. And what would your budget look like if you lost your job or your partner lost their job if you're in a 2-income household, and plan your emergency savings goal around that.
Yes. So it's not a must. It's situational.
Yep.
It's very much so a thrown around. The next one is all debt is bad. I don't agree.
And nor do I. And again, we're going to say this a lot, situational. Mm-hmm. If you have credit card debt and you use that credit card to invest in yourself so that you could increase your income, like maybe you put a course on a credit card, but you know as soon as you finish that course, your employer is going to increase your salary. Mm-hmm. It's going to like bump you up into the next level of something. Or it helps you launch a business that you've done your research on and it's going to be profitable. Or mortgage debt, not bad. Right. In most situations, anything that's helping you buy an asset that's typically going to appreciate. And what's the results of that debt? Student loans, things like that. So like, is it helping you get to somewhere you want to be?
Yeah, so not attaching a negativity to all debts.
Yeah. Let's get rid of that stigma. It's like, what's the intention behind that debt and what's your plan to pay it off and get out of it? Yeah. So the next one, always buy, never rent. And it didn't say specifically a home, but let's put that disclaimer on there.
Yeah. This one irks me because it is so, yes, home ownership is lovely because then your monthly payment is going to something that you own. But there's so many pieces on top of that too. Like there's a lot of house brokeness going on right now. There's a lot of where do I want to put my roots down? So maybe renting in a couple different places allows you that flexibility. So I am not a firm believer in this one. I think it's very situational for some people, and a lot of clients, when we work through it, they come to me, they're like, I need to be investing in real estate. I need to be owning a duplex. I need to buy something. And a lot of that time, that is not a chapter that they put in their book. Someone else put it in their upbringing, typically, or through social media. So understanding the intention behind that chapter. Do you want that to be part of your story? And if so, is it realistic? Like a couple of my clients were downtown Toronto. That is a very, very far off goal. So do you want to uproot and move to Nova Scotia? Okay, we can look at this. But happening where you are to purchase what you're living in, not going to happen. But if you love downtown Toronto and that's where your career is, okay, then we're going to rent. Not the end of the world.
Yep. And also the financial obligation. When you rent, your rent for the duration of your lease, and yes, your rent can go up, and yes, you don't have control over that, but there are generally rules around that. All provinces are a little different. But if you know you've signed a lease and your rent is going to be $2,000 for the next 12 months, that's the most that you're going to pay.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if you get a mortgage and your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, that is the least you are going to pay, because on top of rent, you like, if something breaks, that's not up to you to fix it. But if your water heater blows up or you've got a leaky pipe, you're responsible as the homeowner to fix that. Plus, then you have property taxes and all of those things that add up. Yeah. And heaven forbid you have to replace a roof or something. The cost of home ownership can be very significant. And I've seen posts online like, if you can afford $2,000 rent, you can afford this home. And here's how the mortgage payment is going to be $2,000. And those just like kind of give me the ick, because it's like, that's not the reality. Because if you can afford $2,000 rent, but you know you've got that stability of, I'm not going to have to pay for major things that go wrong with the house or the apartment. But on the house side, you take on a lot more financial challenges.
There's also when mortgage rates were going up, I saw a reel and it was about how don't worry about those rates, because whether it's 5 or 6 or 7%, your rent payment is 100% interest. And I was like, that's still, again, attaching fear and scarcity and guilt around renting. And that's not how it should be.
Buying a home really only makes sense if you're going to be there for, I'm not sure, I can't remember what the duration is, but when you buy a home, if you're going to be there for less than 2-3 years, then you want to go and turn around and sell that home, you've got a lot of costs associated with the purchase and with the sale of your home. So then that's going to eat up a lot of what might be considered profit, the increased value of your home. And lots of people are like, oh yeah, but I bought this home for $300,000 and I'm selling it for $7,000. So I gained $400,000. But then you have to pay, in some situations, some taxes on that, depending on if it was your primary residence. But then also you paid property taxes and you paid all these other things into it. So it's not as clear cut as bought for this much, sold for this much. The difference is profit. So not always best to buy depending on your situation. Drinking game. Every time we say situational, take a shot. No, just kidding. Don't do that. And the next one that's up is that credit cards are dangerous. Avoid them at all costs. And this is a little fear mongering too.
Very much so. It's like saying chainsaws are dangerous or knives are dangerous. Avoid them at all costs. Well, yeah, they're dangerous, but they can also perform a really great function for us if used properly. The same thing goes for credit cards. They are a tool in our toolkit. If used properly, they can help build our credit. If not used properly, they can cut us.
They can harm us. They can really harm us, and they can cost a lot in interest. And the used properly part is credit cards can be great, especially if you've got rewards or cash back, but you have to be able to pay it off in full each month. And that has to be considered part of your budget. And you have to have a plan for how much you want to put on that card each month. So just paying it off every month is great, but paying it off every month and at the detriment to being able to put money into your emergency savings or pay extra towards debt or put into your retirement. So it's like having it part of your plan and also tracking it, because there are lots of studies out there that say using a credit card will increase your payment by X percentage. I can't remember what it is. So it's like it's linking that credit card use with that intentionality. And as we record this, it is middle of October, end of October-ish. And I think year to date, my husband and I use a rewards, a cashback credit card. And I think we've earned up to $1,600 in cash back. And yes, that is a nice amount. It creates a little flexibility in our budget, but we haven't paid any money in interest. So they get you with those rewards cards and they encourage that spending, but they want you to carry a balance. But those rewards don't actually add value unless you are not paying interest. So yes, credit cards can be good, but you've got to have some boundaries around them. So
agree. Okay. You should always have a budget. And this one I would agree on. I think that it's important to have a guideline. I think it's important to know where your money's going, the inflow, the outflow.
Hard agree.
Yeah.
I think this might be the only one that is not a myth. You should always have a budget, regardless of how much money you make, what your expenses are, what your situation is like. Maybe you're living at home with your parents or with a relative and you're not paying rent and you're just kind of going free with your money. Having a budget can help you, regardless of your income level, regardless of your situation, even if you feel like a budget isn't going to help because I don't overspend on things. It's really like having a plan, telling your money where to go, not checking to see where it went after the fact. So I know budgets get a lot of flack, but learn to love your budget. Mm-hmm. Call it something that makes you love it. If the word budget makes you go,
yeah, I call it a money map, whatever you want to call it.
Your financial empowerment plan, call it whatever, but like intentional with your money, because making more money really, I think, emphasizes the need for a budget, because a lot of people that I've worked with and that I work with like really do have substantial incomes, but with the more money, more problems really can multiply. And I've seen it a lot. So yes, have a budget, not a myth. Rule.
Next one is investing is only for the rich. And this is where there's a lot of financial planners like myself that have minimum assets rules, I guess. So that just means if you don't have enough money to invest, you can't work with me. I don't agree with that. I understand that we're running businesses and we have to be business savvy. Yes. So there's other ways to still run our business. But when it comes to that piece, if you don't have the advice when you have $500 or $5,000, then you're not going to get to the $500,000 as the example. So no, you do not have to be rich to invest. The best way to invest, in my opinion, is small amounts every week, bi-weekly, monthly, however it works best for us. It's to start somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, start where you can. I think, I don't remember exactly because it was a long time ago, but I think when I started investing in an RESP, I think I started with $25 every payday. And then I just increased it little bits as I could, as I got pay raises. It ended up being a pretty substantial amount by the time I had a kid going to post-secondary. So start with little bits, and those little bits help to create the habits and then make it easier to make that $25, $50. And then you can just keep going, because until you see that you can do $25 consistently, you don't believe that you can do more. And being able to have time is really an important factor.
Compound interest is our best friends, especially when it's, or compound, not just interest, but compound growth is our best friend. So when we see it growing for us, give yourself that time. Start sooner.
Use interest to your advantage, where interest on a credit card is definitely a disadvantage. So the next one up is cut out all unnecessary spending. And the examples it gives are lattes and eating out. And for me, I think I have this conversation a lot with clients, is that if you create a budget that restricts the things you love, so if you love lattes and eating out or concerts or travel, if you try and create a budget that cuts all of these things out, it's not going to have longevity. It's going to end up being something that you resist. And this is how people end up hating budgets, because they create a plan that cuts everything out that they love, and then they can't stick to it. And then they think budgets are garbage but it's like, it's that plan led to that feeling. But if you create a plan that includes the things you love with some boundaries around it, you can't just like go all willy-nilly. And if there's not room in your budget for a $7 latte every day and you get one and that adds to your debt, obviously that's not good. But having your picture as a whole and deciding where they fit and where they're important.
Yes. And I would add to that, or just give the analogy of it, it's like going on a diet and cutting out all this stuff. You're likely going to break and binge at some point.
Tell me I can't have chocolate. And like with food and your diet and money, they're both things that you can't avoid. You have to learn how to manage them and work with them in a way that supports your long-term goals. So try and tell me I can't have chocolate a day or two maybe, and then I'm just gonna binge. So figuring out that balance, and where does it fit, how important is it to you, and does its importance and the amount you gave it in your budget, do they align?
You should always max out your retirement accounts. No. Depending on your goals, depending on, and for us in Ontario, I would say that that's your RRSP. Yes, it's great to max it out, but if you need funds that are more flexible or for a shorter term goal, your tax-free savings account is going to be the place to go. So if we're talking like unlimited amounts of money, okay, sure. Then let's max out our RRSP. But that's not the typical situation. So I lean actually more so towards if we have a goal of maxing something out, we lean more towards the TFSA, depending on the situation. So no.
Yeah, it's great if you can, but at what cost? So if you're throwing all of your money into your RRSP and then something happens and you don't have any emergency savings and you don't have any money in a TFSA, the tax implications of taking money out of your RSP then mean that you're taxed on it and you lose that contribution room and a lot of other things. So that's more of a place where you put it where you're confident it's going to be for retirement versus that fluidity that you get from your tax-free savings account. And one thing though, if you work with an employer and they have a match, so for every dollar you put in, somebody like your employer puts in a dollar, so it instantly doubles your money. If there's any way you can max that out, that is fantastic because there's nowhere else you're going to immediately double your investment dollar like it is if you have an employer match contribution to your retirement plan.
Yeah, RSPs also get a bit of a bad rep because people that are now in retirement kind of forgot about the benefit that they had here. Like now that we're so far from it, we forgot, oh yeah, I got money back that year because I put into my RSP. Now that they're pulling out, they're like, oh, it's taxable. So balancing also that long-term picture of like, okay, how much, not having too much in a taxable account as well.
Yeah. And yeah, even at retirement age, being able to balance what your taxable income is for the year by having a TFSA and an RSP that you're pulling from, because every year is going to look a little different. And yeah, you're able to have a lot of flexibility there. So next up is save 10% of your income. Thoughts?
That's a lovely thought. Ours is never, whenever I'm working with clients, we're working off of the monthly picture. So when it comes to, if there's that employer plan that matches 7% of your salary, if you can, take advantage of that 100%. But when it comes to saving 10% of your income, I don't use any percentage when it comes to rules. I look at yes, we want to have some savings, some investing, and here's the numbers that get us to what we need in the future. Can we reach that now?
So you're more looking at it as a number in a monthly plan versus 10%. And what I like to do too, and this is, I don't think I've done this with clients yet, but for my personal, for our personal finances, I like to look and see, I'm not saving based on a percentage, but I do like to track the percentage. So what percentage of our take home pay are we saving? Because I like to see.
And do you classify saving and investing as the same?
No. So that's another thing. So it says save 10% of our income. So I'm only calculating that based on money we're putting into our TFSA or RRSP accounts. But on the flip side of it, we do save a really good chunk into sinking funds, which are more of the shorter term car maintenance, Christmas and gifting, buying our next car. There's lots of other things that we save for that I don't actually calculate in that percentage. That percentage is more the longer term TFSA and RSP. And I do try and use the TFSA for put it in there, leave it in there, let it grow.
Yes.
For retirement planning.
Okay. That makes sense. The next one is, I love this one. You need a financial advisor to manage your money. And I would say as a financial planner / financial advisor that manages people's money, it's not a need. Because there's a lot of clients that I have too where we do fee for service, where I help them with their financial plan, but they like to be self-directed. They like to spend the time researching it, understanding it, making those decisions. I might help them look at their portfolio and look at their investor profile and make sure that it's a good match. It's not for everyone though. I don't think that you should be DIY investing if you don't really want to spend the time and the effort to do it. And there's also ways that because it's fees is a lot of what the conversation is around, right? I'm paying my financial advisor this much in fees. There's ways that I'm structuring my business and other people are as well, that the fee on the fund doesn't have to be 2% or 3%. So there's options, but you don't have to have someone else manage it. You can manage it, but I highly suggest that you have an interest and take your time to investigate what you're going to be putting your funds into. Yeah,
if the thought of managing it on your own gives you stress and anxiety and you avoid it because of that stress and anxiety, then it is better to outsource it. It's like anything else. You're figuring out do I have the capability, the resources, and the desire to do it myself?
Yeah.
Or do I want to outsource that at a cost? Like anything you outsource is at a cost. And for some people, they know that they're not best suited to manage their own investment and retirement planning, but there can also be a hybrid, right? So you can invest some of your money and manage it yourself, and you can have somebody managing a chunk for you, and you can have that hybrid until you gain confidence and feel comfortable, and then maybe you move it all to self-directing that you're managing. Like there's no one size fits all plan, and you have to do what works best for you. And some people just absolutely, it's a hard no. They don't want to research funds and know what dividends are, and they decide which account it makes sense to have it in based on the tax situation. Just know yourself and know what's going to work best for you, and trial and error. Maybe you try to do something by yourself and you're checking it every day and you're getting stressed out when it goes down, and you're like feeling elated and you're getting all the dopamine when it goes up. Like I think I read somewhere that they did some research on some self-directed funds, and the best performing ones were people that had died, because you then aren't making any changes. Like long term, you pick funds that have longevity, and you put money in and you leave it there and you let it grow. But
you're not doing the buy, sell, the trade, the this, that. And when it comes to that self-directed piece, I have clients that just want to have like essentially fun money, because they want to know that if they lost it all, which is highly unlikely, but not impossible, if they lost it all, their big chunk is still taken care of. It's okay. And then I'm also seeing clients now too, where they've been self-directed for a lot of their investor history. And now that they're getting closer to retirement, they don't want the mental game of it anymore.
Yep.
It's coming over to be managed. But there's no right size, perfect situation, or you have to do one or the other.
Yep. Figure out what your gut tells you and try it. And if it doesn't work, then pivot. If you start with an advisor and you're like, nope, I want to do it myself, then you can make adjustments. It's not that challenging to move stuff around from an advisor to self-directed and vice versa. It's just a little bit of paperwork. Know what fits you best, and know that really there are no money rules except for have a budget and spend less than you make, because those are the two that those are hills that I will die on.
Yes.
To be able to achieve long-term financial success, you have to have a plan for your money, and that plan gives you that clarity that you're spending less than you make. So we are glad you've been here, and we would love to read a review and make sure you subscribe so that you get notifications to new episodes that we do publish every Thursday, that I am proud to say we have been consistent as fuck with. So we are glad that you've been here, and we can't wait to see you next time on the Mind and Money podcast. Have a great day.